You should be good
There we go. Thank you.
now. Yep.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good
We
morning.
are finally at the final meeting of the update of the Ashland County Farmland Preservation Plan.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it's always good to get to the end of the process. So now we're in the review stage, I guess, for lack of a better term. And this meeting could be a short one, could be a long one. I guess it really depends on the comments that we get back from you folks and any last minute changes that we need to make to the document. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the draft plan and has come prepared. If you have any changes or comments, things that you want to discuss, that's what we'll use today's form to do. So Autumn, can you pull up a copy of the draft plan, please? Okay. So I imagine you folks are looking at this on a bigger screen than I am. So hopefully you can see that.
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, great. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at it and if you have any questions, comments, things you want to discuss. We won't go through it line by line. I think we've done that already, internally in conducting our review and making changes, and tried to incorporate any changes that came along during the process. So I'll just throw it out there. Are there any aspects of the plan that you'd like to revise or make suggestions on changes or modifications to?
I think what would help, Jason, if we
Mhm.
could at least just go chapter by chapter.
Sure.
So if you go to the first chapter and just review what that was about,
Mm-hmm.
and then we could talk about it by chapter at least, not page by page, but if we can go chapter by chapter, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. So the first chapter is just the background, the general information that supports plan development. And you can just kind of scroll on through there, Autumn. So a lot of this information is required just in terms of providing some support to how the plan was developed and the fact that this is an update. We followed the proper procedures during plan development. We will follow the proper procedures in submittal of the data and the required documentation for DATCAP, which is forthcoming. And you can continue, please.
I thought the maps turned out really nice.
Okay, good, good.
I liked the maps. Were there any maps, Jason, that you were disappointed with how they turned out?
No, I wouldn't say disappointed. I mean, these are pretty straightforward, and the data is not things that we generate internally. It's coming from existing data, so it sort of is what it is. No, I think they were fine. They were pretty standard for this type of process. So we didn't run across any major issues, in terms of getting the information or having gaps or anything to that effect.
Sure, thank you.
All right, Chapter 2, discussion on farmland preservation planning and what the requirements are. The planning process, again, continuing on from the 2016 plan and what happened during this update process. So we've documented that with a chronological history on the meetings that were held. You can continue. Any questions on Chapter 2? Okay, so let's move on to Chapter 3. So this is the chapter titled Existing Conditions, and basically looking at a demographic profile of Ashland County. So a lot of this information is redundant from what would be in the comprehensive plan. I don't recall this being a fully fleshed out version in the previous plan. I think a lot of this information, or at least a good majority of this information, is new data that has been dumped into the plan to support the current planning time frame. So we've got just general demographics, housing. Go ahead and continue, please. The land use analysis, looking at the agriculture surveys that are produced by the Census Bureau. Again, pretty static data. We have to make a tweak to this graph, the pie chart here, because it's just a little bit stretched. At least it looks that way in my view. So we need to make some adjustment to that. Basically, the intent here is to take a look at any existing information that we have access to quantify the footprint of agriculture in the county. And really that boils down to looking at the ag census. So what you're seeing are extrapolated data sets, graphics, tables that come from information that's reported to the Agricultural Statistics Service. And we talk about ag enterprise areas. Obviously, that's important to this county because it does have an AEA. The AEA shared with Bayfield County, and there's a supporting map. Again, documents that particular land area.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to just talk about that real quick.
Sure.
Because there was, at the last meeting we talked about the farmland preservation area.
Mm-hmm.
And that area encompassed this map, and it also extended all the way down to southern Ashland County to Butternut.
Right.
And that's where we had the map overlay complications.
Yep.
So we discussed reducing the farmland preservation area to coincide with the AEA, which is the green area shown here. And we agreed to do that. But then my question was, if we ever wanted to expand this AEA along its current boundaries or create a new AEA, if we have the eligible landowners and the eligible acreage, we would also have to have that farmland area expanded so that farmers could enroll into the farmland preservation agreements.
Yes.
So I did ask the state, and they said at any time during this next 10-year period, we can modify the farmland preservation area if we were going to be expanding the AEA. So by reducing our farmland area to coincide with this green map, it does not cause us any future problems to be able to make modifications or edits to that. Correct, Jason?
That's correct. The only caveat is if you make the modification, it still has to be ratified by DATCAP. So there are procedural aspects that need to be followed. But yeah, the county is free to make adjustments to this as needed.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we all understand that. So.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on this subject, Mary Jo?
No.
Okay. We talk about farms and ag services, basically the support system that's available for agriculture. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be within the county. And
I do have a question on
Sure.
that page. We do have a new butcher that opened in the Marengo area. I think it's called Custom Cuts. Custom Cuts. And I think we should add that business to this list.
Okay, we can do that.
And what's the full name? Is it Custom Cuts Meat Processing? Butchery? Custom Cuts Butchery.
Okay.
That's
All
it.
right. Okay. All right, so now we're talking about the existing ag profile, discussion about farmland conversion, which is obviously a major issue affecting farmland preservation initiatives and really the impetus for farmland preservation initiatives across the state. Assistance programs, again, listing basic federal programs that are available to support ag preservation, state programs, and then local resources that are available to assist landowners in this process. All right, when we talk about the forest resources of the county and the associated map that comes from WISC land cover, basically showing the forested versus non-forested areas. Then the land ownership, which coincides with management and management objectives for those various properties. Then economic development. So this is the business and growth side of things and the interplay with the agricultural community. Here's where we start delving in to data that comes from a different source. So we're not necessarily relying on census information. We are using economic modeling software called Lightcast that gives us access to business-related data and statistics. So it's a little bit of a different focus than looking at the census. Summarization of the growth trends, both in ag and forestry. Then the utilities, infrastructure, and community facilities piece, looking at transportation, the transportation system, which obviously here is mainly the road network. Stormwater infrastructure, which predominantly in the county would be shoreline protection, floodplain zoning, existing zoning ordinances, and municipal ordinances related to stormwater control. And there's a number of related ordinances listed. Water systems, most of the county is obviously on private well and septic, but there are municipal systems that serve the incorporated municipalities. Discussion about those. Wastewater, same situation. Get into telecommunication and the energy service providers for the county. Energy independence, solid waste, library. These are all municipal services and facilities and resources that are accessible not only to the agricultural community, but also others, everybody else in Ashland County as well. So this information will be redundant with what's in the comp plan. Yeah, I won't just read off everything in there. Then the discussion of natural resources and the environment, basically talking about the glacial history of Ashland County, the climate, which obviously plays a big role in agriculture and productivity, soil types, touch on the climate change issue here. Obviously, this is an important one. There's the soil information. And the supporting soil map. I'm not particularly fond of the color scheme, but when you're dealing with so many standardized classifications and color codes, these are the ones that are used. It looks rather psychedelic. And environmental health and safety. This sort of starts the discussion about PFAS and PFAS in the natural environment, health risks, and the current state of environmental health. And here's one of the areas where we are data limited in terms of getting information about potential soil contamination and where that might be an issue in the future. We're basically, the permitting information is the only thing that's really accessible online from a state agency. But I'm glad we showed that. This is one of the few times within the Farmland Preservation Plan where we actually start talking about PFAS and have a map that is included in the plan. All right. And then we talk about water resources, Lake Superior Basin, watersheds, water sources, surface groundwater, the map of the watersheds at various HUC levels. And then a very general surface water resources map for Ashland County. Unfortunately, at this scale, it's not really permissible to label things because the label density just wouldn't be there given the size. Okay. 303D water bodies, these are the impaired waterways. So areas that we know we have contamination issues. And in many cases, these are natural deposition, atmospheric deposition of mercury. But in others, there are other impairments, human-caused impairments. Then fish consumption advisories that go along with that 303D status, what's safe to eat, what's not safe to eat. The beach monitoring program, ORW and ERW, the exceptional and outstanding water resources, table that lists the outstanding and exceptional water resources within the county, along with their supporting area, length, groundwater. I think we have the groundwater contamination susceptibility map. This is the same map that has been used for probably 20 years. That was originally produced by USGS. Has not really been updated substantially, but you can see the impact of the clay plain in the northern third of the county on contamination susceptibility, at least as it relates to groundwater. Riparian areas, areas adjacent to lakes, rivers, and streams, which in this case are referred to as environmental corridors. And these are basically the areas that are subject to shoreline zoning regulations. Wetlands, of course, this is a major component of the county. Map of supporting wetlands from the Wisconsin Wetland Inventory. Fish and wildlife resources, traditional gathering activities, TES, threatened and endangered species. Those are listed to the extent that we're able to publish or that information has been publicly published. Invasive species and concerns that exist within the county, and the fact that the county does have a strategic plan for addressing AIS. Talk about recreation, particularly outdoor recreation, land ownership, the public land base, tribal land base, private land base, and then existing land use. Now, here's a sort of a stumbling block because we don't have a comprehensive current existing land use map for the county. We can't definitively produce a map that's 2025 validated. But because that's being developed as part of the comp plan, that then will, once that's completed and this is adopted as an addendum to that comp plan, it will be accessible when you're looking at this. Again, going back to land toxification and PFAS, fragmentation, these are issues that are challenging for the agricultural community. You see climate change. Now we start getting into the strategic element. So let's go back to chapter 3 on that background. Is there anything that we didn't cover or any errors in the information that we did cover?
Back on page 28, the top part of the page has a lot of bullets that have periods after them. And then the bullets at the bottom of the page do not. And I'm just wondering if they all need to be similar in how it's written.
Yeah, they should be similar.
On page 20. So keep going back. I guess it's on the plan page. So we're at 32. Keep going back more. Yeah, page 28 there. So the top of this all has periods and the bottom bullets don't.
Oh, in this case, this is probably a more appropriate use of those because those are the statements above are written as paragraphs and sentences. The statements below are just simple bullet points, not written as
Okay.
sentence format. But
Okay.
generally, if it's written in a sentence or paragraph format like above, it should have a period on it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, any other questions on the that supporting background section?
Looks
Okay,
good.
so let's go into the strategy portion of the document. So this one is pretty straightforward in terms of its structure. Basically talking about the goals, objectives, policies, and actions. This frames the entire sequence of actions that the county wishes to undertake or those that are desirable in terms of agricultural preservation over the lifetime of the plan. So there isn't any additional information in this. It's basically all focused on the goals, objectives, policies, and actions. So this one, I don't know that we necessarily want to review or need to review. Oh, we should at least talk about the issues. The issues part of this, we did this right off the bat, the beginning of the update, looking at where the challenges lie right now and what the concerns are from the agricultural community as it relates to farmland preservation. And you could scroll down on them. Trends, taking a look at what the trends are with AEAs and what the future may look like.
So we created the that farmland threats to farmland document after we did this original practice. So if we can just go back up to the top part of this section where we
Mm-hmm.
talk about concerns or the issues. Yeah. Our threats to farmland document talks about groups things into four categories: toxification, fragmentation, reduction, and climate instability. And I just want to make sure all four of those are captured in the issues here. So we have
Yeah,
farmland loss up there that deals with reduction, fragmentation. What about toxification or climate instability? Oh yeah, there's climate. Do we have any reference in these issues to toxification?
the
Oh
septic
yeah.
spreading part of it. But
Yep.
is that comprehensive when you're talking about land toxification? Does it go beyond PFAS?
You mean that bullet there, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, this is specific to septic spreading and
Right.
proliferating PFAS contamination. I'm just wondering that under the land toxification topic, if that's more broad than just that subject of septic spreading.
Yes. There's a list of chemicals as long as your arm.
Yeah, that aren't necessarily. So I'm wondering, do we need another bullet
Not
that
referenced in there.
Yeah, it's not in there,
Do
but
we need to add anything, Charlie?
okay. Let's see.
Wait for.
Could I possibly make a suggestion? Page 42, when we have that great detailed list of impaired waters, I'm wondering if we should somehow insert a direct statement in the goals, objectives, policies that kind of refers back to that we could quote effectively when, because I have seen grants at various levels who want to see like literal names of bodies of water listed in a comprehensive plan that you can quote that says the county is behind wanting to get this addressed. So we've got that. It's clearly all the data is there. I wonder if we should insert a direct statement. And I have not gone through the goals with a fine tooth comb. Maybe it is in there, but just a direct statement that says something like, we want to fix all impaired waterways by blah, 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 blah. Our goal is to like just to state it openly because in the impaired waterways section, it says that, we have to report to the state, but we don't say our goal is to actually fix these waterways, right?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I'd have to wait till we get to the goal section to see if that particularly is already addressed.
The pollutants, Jason, would be heavy metals, pharmaceuticals, industrial chemicals, organic pollutants, microplastics, and the various versions of PFAS.
Okay.
If you want to get that in that particular.
Yeah, so maybe we'd list that as a separate bullet point in there.
I think that's probably a good idea. Is that in a specific bullet, Charlie, from this?
Yeah, it's under toxification, key threats, pollutants. And then there's also pathogens, which I didn't read out.
On what page?
The summary that Tim did,
Yeah, which page?
very first page, toxification. key
Oh.
Threats, pollutants and pathogens.
Yeah, okay, I'll send you guys a sentence on this.
Okay.
And then we'll insert it on page 66 there under environmental and climate related issues.
Okay.
And it'd be
Perfect.
pollutants and pathogens, if you want to just write a.
Actually, yeah, let's just add a bullet in there that says pollutants. I don't know, can you edit this document live?
No, I think this is a PDF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll send you a bullet.
Perfect.
So the EPA actually has a list of chemicals that they're concerned about. Unfortunately, it has more than 90 chemicals listed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if just putting something broad in there that we want to protect the groundwater using the list that the EPA has on file. I mean, that includes PFAS chemicals. It
Yeah.
includes radionucleotides, I think it's called.
We could
nitrogen.
say something like EPA listed pollutants and pathogens.
Yeah, you could reference the.
Reference to the
EPA.
Safe Drinking Water Act or something like that.
Yeah, okay. I can do that.
Gets as bad as the stuff in your hair conditioner, and your shampoo.
Yeah.
There's
it's
just
pretty
stuff
complex
going in
list.
there that's.
Okay. We ready to continue on?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Then we talk about, again, this is part of the issues, the opportunities, if you scroll up. The 4 of those that are listed. Agricultural enterprise trends and future. Okay, we've already talked about this stuff a little bit. Yeah, I won't go through each one of these subtopics. You can scroll forward on them. So here we get to the goals and objectives specifically. So goal 1, if you're looking back at that surface water issue, we'll just take these as they come, at least at the goal level. Preserve the county's agricultural land base to protect the county's aesthetics, rural character, and agricultural heritage for future generations. So nothing specific to the shoreline necessarily under this one.
I want to ask a question, if you don't mind, Jason.
Sure.
Erica, is that goal 1, item A, is that specific enough to get your water reference in there for your grant writing? Kind of
I
broad.
think it's okay. It's also under, there is also minimize water pollution under item H.
Okay,
So I think the combination of those and then maybe just referring back to, page 42 when we're sort of
and then you can
constructing
also
these
refer to
things.
the maps that list our bodies of water
Right,
that are in here. So
right. Yeah,
I mean, you could add under that H, you could add to prioritize restoration efforts, based on the 303D list or something to that effect.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. So just adding a little bit to item H, prioritizing impaired waterways or something.
Do you have words you want to provide, or
Oh.
like Mary Jo, or?
I trust Mary Jo, for sure. Goal 1 objectives, item H, yeah. Minimize water pollution and erosion from farmland in Ashland County and prioritize something like addressing impaired waterways or something, fixing, mitigating, whatever the right word
Would you
would
like to
be.
reference a list?
We could say, and prioritize impaired waters listed on the 303D list.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't you scroll to goal 2? Preserve and protect the county's natural resource base from potential degradation and contamination. So this is a little bit more focused specifically on that topic. And we can certainly be redundant. And I don't know if you want to add, just kind of going back to that waters list, support something the effect of supporting TMDL development for those impaired waterways, because that's going to be a big goal. A big part of it is making sure that they have the TMDL established by DNR.
There isn't one now?
Depends on the waterway, but I'm sure that there are a number of them that do not.
For certain chemicals, you mean? Is it, they got the typical runoff things at TMDL and the water standards?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically phosphorus loading would be the big thing.
So we need to add different chemistry to the TMDL list that wasn't.
Well,
We
you
don't
just-
have a TMDL identified in Ashland County.
Yeah.
TMDL is a total maximum daily load. And this is a categorization. Is it given by the DNR, Jason?
Yeah.
It's identified by the DNR based on the amount of pollutants in the waterway. So some of our waterways are listed as an impaired water. They have degradation. Those go on the 303D list. 303 means impaired waterways as designated by the state. And they're impaired for some type of characteristic. So the Marengo was just recently listed on the 303D list for fecal coliform. So it does not meet the safe water standard for fecal coliform. And we've learned through DNA testing that it's from ruminants, from agriculture, and human. But we know what's causing it, but now we don't know. We do not have the capacity to figure out where these are entering the Marengo. There's hundreds of places where minimal streams could be entering. But we have some impairment, but that is not enough of impairment to warrant a categorization as a TMDL by the DNR. Usually TMDLs happen in very, very large agricultural communities. Our waterways are still predominantly forested waterways, and we do not have enough of an impairment to get categorized as a TMDL.
But the TMDL list is controlled by the DNR. And there's a process through which you go to get chemicals added or subtracted from it.
I'm not sure how they get listed, I don't know if we go to the DNR or if the DNR does their own monitoring. And once a water body gets to a certain level, it gets identified. Do you understand that process, Jason?
Well, it starts with the Clean Water Act. That's where the 303D reference comes from. And that working down from that, basically setting minimum standards and what's the federal responsibility versus the state responsibility. And it's the state's responsibility to implement the Clean Water Act. So the DNR does not necessarily sample every waterway. They rely heavily on the local jurisdictions to collect information, lake districts, volunteers. So the database is not comprehensive. And it's not comprehensive in terms of the number of water bodies it covers, nor the time frame that it covers. So there are lots of gaps in this information. That process of getting a TMDL established is important because it moves towards mitigation, or it moves towards reduction, risk reduction. The problem is that that process is expensive. So not every waterway is going to have a TMDL. As Mary Jo mentioned, that the prioritization is based on primarily the setting in which that watershed or that water body exists. In a lot of cases, urbanized watersheds, I think of Lake Menominee in Menominee is a perfect example of a 303D water body with a TMDL and a process for mitigation. I don't know that same scenario necessarily exists in Ashland County, but should there be an opportunity for addressing those concerns and having a TMDL developed for a water body, I think it's important that the framework is at least there to do it and encourage DNR to do it, because it's important to you locally. It may not be a big priority on the statewide spectrum, but a local priority would be very high.
So our action would be, we want to explore establishing TMDLs for water bodies that we're concerned about in the county. You would
encourage DNR to establish TMDLs and other implementation mechanisms for water bodies of high priority.
Okay, and where are we suggesting putting that, or is it in here?
Well, I'm not sure if we want to put TMDL in here. Do we, Jason?
It's up to you. I mean, it more or less boils down to your concern with having those implemented.
Well, it seems like someone would need to establish what a maximum load would be for any particular chemical we think we're afraid of, right? And who would get to decide what's
it has to go
toxic?
Well, and I don't think
process.
TMDLs, in my understanding, apply more to phosphorus loading and sediment, not other chemicals. Are you aware of TMDLs for other chemicals?
No.
I don't think we have a mechanism in this state to even create.
But I think those got put on there because they were becoming a threat. I don't think that means they're the only things that can be on there. So if we could demonstrate that certain chemicals are becoming a threat, then that would be the method we would use to identify and then create load.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, I don't know that I'm right, but I think that phosphorus and nitrogen got established and those processes were established so we could say that's too much nitrogen in the water. That's too much phosphorus. That's why we were getting farmers to spread less fertilizer and spread at different times. So it was a reaction to a chemistry problem. PFAS wasn't a chemistry problem back then. Yeah. Maybe that's how we attack it, maybe not.
So my opinion has always been, if we're going to put actions at goals, we should have some concept of, do we have the capacity to do this? And what is our intention? What are we going to do? If we put something in here thinking that we should try something that doesn't even exist, to me, that is almost like pie in the sky. Like there is no process in the state right now to establish TMDLs for pharmaceutical chemicals.
That would be the explore part. Maybe we find out there's nothing we can do, but at least we highlight, that would be like, here's something we need help with.
Jason, you mentioned a second part of that sentence that you said, something about TMDLs or other applications. I forget what the second part, but I think the second part of what you said is important.
Well, other implementation mechanisms. So you're basically looking at any tools you have available to move the lake or water body away from 303D.
So I'm
And
in
there-
favor of that. If we
Okay.
add those words, and I don't even know which bullet we were talking about, but if we add in there utilizing implementation tools to reduce our 303D waters or prioritize actions on our 303D water list. But I'm very cautious about using TMDL because that is a massive, massive action item. I don't even know if we would have the capacity in our department to work on a TMDL.
I don't think that you would be allowed to determine the TMDL. That's a scientific measure so what I think is happening, PFAS is becoming a threat. Well, it is a threat. So now they're going to have to establish, and they have established quantities that are safe and not safe. They just haven't applied it to a water TMDL standard. So at some point, when they test the water for PFAS, and they did that up here earlier, the DNR, but it's not on a TMDL list, and maybe it would be reasonable for us to ask them, how are you going to determine in the water, through what mechanism are you going to say this is too much and we need to take steps to reduce it in the water? They did that with the TMDL for nitrogen and phosphorus and other common farm chemicals. I think that's just going to be a natural progression to that. I don't know, though. I'm new at this too. But it doesn't hurt to me to say, put explore in front of that, where we ask the DNR, what are you going to do about this? We have an issue here. And not saying we're going to do it, but we're going to reach out to the appropriate people who might.
Well, if we put it in this plan, then I feel like we do need to do this work.
Exploring.
Yes, which could be huge.
It could
And
be.
we have no expertise. Yeah.
I understand.
I'm just cautious about
Yeah.
how much we put in here and say we're going to do, because I want to create plans that we have the capacity to actually do what we say we're going to do in the next 10 years.
But listing the threats is not necessarily saying we're going to do anything about it. We have an entire section of we need help. We can't do anything, but we're telling them this is a problem. So I say we put it in that part of our thing. We can't protect our citizens because we're not funded properly and we don't know what mechanisms we can approach. Secondly, you're the boss here. I'm just throwing ideas out there. You know how to run the thing and I will support you 100%. But to me, listing the issues is separate from saying we have a solution. It just says we'll try to see what we can do with the money we have. So,
But also remember, this is an ag preservation focused plan. I think if you're going to get serious about mitigating, it's like PFAS in the system, then I would focus heavily on the land and water management plan for the county versus this, because it's just not the right vehicle for that. It's fine to be redundant, but I don't think this document shouldn't be going into places where the land and water management plan is really designed to go.
I'm
Just
sorry.
just for a point of information, do the 303D list or the TMDLs, is that any way linked to state funding to try to mitigate those issues?
Yes, there are surface water grants that you can apply for through the state. And if it is in a 303D list or TMDL, you can get more eligibility. But these are grants that are like, the surface water grants are up to $50,000. Now, you can also, if you have a TMDL, there are targeted runoff management grants that can be applied for, and those can be up to $200,000 to $300,000. And we are going to be applying for our first one this year to assist with building a manure storage pit. But once again, the process to get designated as a TMDL is a very long, cumbersome process. And that would take a large workload on our department. And when I look at the umbrella of the big projects that we're working on and trying to achieve right now, it would be a burden. And I'm not saying we can't do it or we shouldn't do it, but But when I think about TMDL, it sort of is a nightmare for me. So I like Jason's wording when he said to utilize implementation applications to address problems that we've identified and not necessarily put in a targeted runoff management, TMDL, because like he said, that also is a larger water quality issue that's not just specific to ag.
So what I'm hearing is that maybe this is an issue in Ashland County, but doesn't need to be addressed in the farmland preservation plan. Maybe it's a land and water issue.
Well, I don't even know if it's an actual issue because in order to be classified as a TMDL, you have to have enough water quality impairment. And typically these are in large urban areas that have massive stormwater runoff. So you have chemicals coming from stormwater, or it's in agricultural areas where there is extreme intensive ag. You have many CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations, and you might have a small watershed that has multiple large farms. We do not have that landscape in Ashland County. So I don't know if we have enough impairment in our water to even be eligible for a total maximum daily load. It's possible, but I mean, do we want to take the time to do that investigation to try and get a TMDL when right now it doesn't even appear as a large-scale issue? Like the water bodies that we're talking about also are still listed as outstanding and exceptional resource waters by the state. So there's sections of these waterways that are outstanding water resources that we want to preserve, and there are small areas that have been identified to have fecal coliform issues. But I don't know if that warrants, a contamination issue for the watershed.
So it seems like we have a lot of bullets throughout this plan of areas we want to explore, and that this one may just add burden to what we want to get done.
Yeah, I'm curious for Jason's opinion on this. And like he said, this is getting really into water quality depth. That in general, our ag community is not creating this type of problem here because we do not have large scale ag. So if we do have a concern with the water quality, it is probably better addressed in the Land and Water Resource Management Plan, which guides my department. And that was revised in 2019. So we'll be starting to work on a 10-year revision in 2028 for that. Or it's possible to talk about it in the water quality section of the county comprehensive plan. But once again, we don't even know if we have that level of impairment. So it would take us some amount of research to determine if that should be an investigation or a goal or an action. Yeah, it's not my area of expertise, so it's hard for me to know.
I think that's fair. And if it's not an issue that's been flushed out in the Land and Water Conservation Plan primarily, then we really shouldn't be addressing it in depth here. So that's a much better vehicle for addressing that issue. This plan should be complementary. So if there were initiatives to have TMDLs designated on water bodies in the Land and Water Conservation Plan, we should be redundant here with a focus on agriculture. But if that's not the case, then we probably shouldn't go too far in depth in this plan.
I would just say that the amount of PFAS in our water is going to indicate how much is running off of our farmland. And PFAS will take farmland out of preservation. It'll eliminate farmland as it has. So to me, this finding out, I mean, if we got 2 parts per trillion in Lake Superior, where is that coming from? Is it coming off our farmland? So I want to trace that back because to me, is going to have a direct impact on the farmlands. So, and not to belabor it, and if it doesn't get in this one, that's fine. We've made so much other, I think we're doing a good job here. I just don't want people to forget the link between PFAS and the water. I mean, nitrogen in the water is an indication of how much is running off a farm field, but it isn't going to stop the farmland field from selling their corn. PFAS will. So to me, it's even more important to track the PFAS than the nitrogen. But I'll leave it at that. And thank you all for the discussion.
Which bullet here did we start talking about wanting to edit?
Probably D. Oh, no. Yeah. That's the one that references water quality degradation. And it's fine if we need to add a new bullet, that's acceptable too.
Or was it F? Minimize and mitigate land and groundwater toxification? I don't remember what bullet spurred this whole conversation.
I don't know if it was a specific bullet. I think it was just the general discussion about TMDLs and their status in the county and whether or not that should be referenced in this plan in a meaningful way.
Yeah,
And from
whether-
what I've heard, it doesn't sound like that's necessarily the case at all.
it sounds like it's difficult, but it is a tool to mitigate chemistry if it ain't so
Yeah.
difficult to put into effect. Yeah.
I thought it came off of goal number 1, supporting H. Is that where we started the conversation?
I think that's where we started it.
Can you go back to the previous one where bullet H is? Thank you.
And then we went to goal 2 objectives, and water, I believe, is listed twice in that objective 2. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of redundancy in these. They do overlap.
I guess, Charlie, do you have a specific thing you want added?
I think I think there is useful phrasing under goal 2 action steps. Number 2, research and develop agricultural ordinances that help reduce the risk of water quality degradation, so that perhaps, Charlie, if we do contact the state, we can say that is in there and then reference back through the plan, right? What we want to see. Yeah.
Would we be okay with that?
I'm okay with this entire plan, whether it hits everything or not. We've been doing a
Okay.
damn good job of getting to most things, and I'll
Agreed.
settle for half a loaf.
Okay.
Jason, I think we could probably add the words into that bullet where
Mhm.
it says research and develop agricultural ordinances. And then we could add the words and utilize those 2 words that you said,
Implementation mechanisms.
implementation mechanisms
Yep.
that help reduce the risk of water quality degradation and loss of wildlife habitat.
Yep.
Did you capture that, Autumn?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Page 71. Okay. Sounds good.
All right,
Thank
let's
you.
move on to goal 3. Support land use patterns that protect forest and agricultural lands. So this is one that really should be redundant in the comprehensive plan when it's developed. Any thoughts, suggestions on this one? Or are we okay with it?
Looks good to me.
Okay.
I think it's good.
All right, so let's move on to the farmland preservation area delineation. We summarize the criteria that's used to map farmland preservation areas. You can scroll down. So this is basically the technical information that will be submitted along with the mapping to DATCAP. And if you recall, we talk about future land use. We did identify an inconsistency or an inaccuracy, I should say, with the previous farmland preservation area mapping and future land use mapping. So it's a good idea to pull that out and just use that AEA footprint, at least for this iteration. Okay, anything else on chapter 4? Okay. Chapter 5, the implementation section. This is basically a listing of the programs that are available to move the plan forward, the tools that are accessible and available to implement the farmland preservation plan. Of course, first and foremost, we have the tax credits, the AEA. We talked about farmland preservation zoning a little bit and whether or not there was an appetite to pursue that in the county, and a list of other programs that are a bit more technical, like purchase of development rights, transfer of development rights, various ordinances, the consistency requirement with comprehensive planning, monitoring, basically ensuring that the plan is being monitored at some scale. You know, the big fear is you develop a plan and it just gets put on a shelf and nobody actually looks at it. Problem with that is 10 years go by, and if you're not utilizing it, you have to ask first, why am I doing this? But second is so many things change so rapidly that you're potentially missing opportunities by not going back to this plan periodically and saying, hey, is there something that's occurred over the last year that necessitates either a change in our plan, or can we actually use this plan to try and get funding to address this emerging issue? Okay, Autumn, go ahead and scroll down. Then the adoption requirements, and then Appendix A. We're not necessary to go through that, but that's the mapping reflected at each municipality level for unincorporated towns, I should say, with the farm and preservation areas. But of course, that corresponds to AEA boundaries. And I think that gets us to the end of it. Yeah. So that's the plan in a nutshell. And there you see the maps that are attached. They're all at the same scale, but of course, not every township, or every town, I should say, is the same size. So if you're looking at to have a map in the plan that's exactly the same size, unfortunately, that's not possible, just because of the scale requirements that DATCAP has. So we have to produce these at 1 to 24 thousandths. That's why you see the big pages.
I have one housekeeping question. Is Pat Kinney's name completely off this plan?
Yes, I removed that per Mary Jo's request.
All right, thank you.
I have a
Then
question.
the NHI inventory listings, this is just coming from existing information. So this is information that is proprietary to the DNR. And then the section that you folks worked on, has the toxification bullet points in there. And we made sure we got this incorporated. I think this is a good addition, at least in terms of an addendum.
And Jason, that's also where their specific
Yeah.
chemical lists are, if you want to
Okay.
pull them from there. And I have one, I guess a suggestion. The plan, while I like it, it isn't in the order that I find perfect. I think we bury the lead when we open the plan with background. I would like to see the lead as that particular appendix there, which kind of states, these are the things we're struggling with. And what we're trying to do about them. So if, there's no executive summary here that, is anybody else taking my meaning here? If you read this, you'd have to read to the end to find out what the heck we're really worried about. And I think the opener should be, if nobody read anything else, they'd know what issues we find troublesome and what we're trying to do about them. So I know this is late to bring it to the game. And if you don't want to change it up a little bit or try to create some kind of executive summary that incorporates the most worrisome things, I would be fine with it. And then we just work on that if I'm around in 10 years. But I think if you get one chance for someone to read it, reading the background information isn't going to draw them to the end. It might not draw them to get to the very end where the meat and potatoes of what the plan actually is and what's holding us back. And I'll leave it with that. Thank you very much. I appreciate what you and Autumn have done. Thank you.
Well, Charlie, we can certainly take this section and create an executive summary off of it. That's not a big issue. As far as the general plan structure and the background up front, unfortunately, just standard planning protocol.
Yeah.
To always begin at the simple and then get to work your way to the complex.
Understood.
But I think an executive summary would be perfectly acceptable. And in fact, if that's moved, that would take this text from the appendix, summarize it in a narrative format, and put it really as the preamble to the entire plan. And it would be no more than 2 or 3 paragraphs in length.
Well, I am thankful that you see it that way because I knew it was late to the game. I'm glad that you also share that there would be some value in that. I guess the group would have to also agree.
Yeah, and the only challenge with that being at this stage, if we did that, we would have to develop a narrative for it, and we'd have to have concurrence in this group that's the narrative that you want to move forward. So there'd be caveats with doing that. But it's your prerogative. If that's the direction you want to go, we can go that way. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you'll still have to approve that language.
Yeah. Could we as a group agree to let you and Mary Jo determine the language and then send it forward?
Well, we could prepare the language and provide it to Mary Jo for feedback. I'm concerned about spending too much time
Right.
trying to go back and forth on this when we're trying to move it through the adoption phase.
Yeah.
I think what he's asking is, can we decide today that we would approve the language as developed for an executive summary?
That you and Mary Jo would get carte blanche to make those calls.
If that's the direction you want to go, we can do that, certainly.
Okay. Well, let's do a straw poll. Does this group agree that would be a good thing? And do you agree that Mary and Jason can take care of it? Okay. Dan, do you
Unanimous
think we need an
decision.
official motion?
It's not real, nobody made a motion, so,
Pardon me?
nobody made a motion.
Do you
but,
feel we need one?
I would say yes. I mean, we're
Okay.
still trying to follow Robert's rules.
All right, so can someone make a motion to, make a motion that we include an executive summary that will be prepared by Jason and Mary Jo and included in this plan?
Can you make that motion?
I make that motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to allow Jason and Mary Jo to develop an executive summary and include it with the rest of the plan moving forward. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
So Jason, you guys will develop the threats to farmland appendix summary into a narrative.
Yep.
And then are we also going to still include it as a bulletized list as an appendix?
I
Or
think
can
so.
we? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we certainly can.
Yeah, we would like to do that, please.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Okay, let's move on to the adoption timeline. If there are no other questions related to the plan at this stage.
I have
Okay.
none.
All right.
I have
So
none.
here we are, December 16th, and we would be looking for this committee to recommend approval by the Ashland County Board. The board meets next January 27th, at which point they would hopefully accept the plan and then schedule a public hearing. Once this has been done, that triggers the Class 1 notice. So here's where the challenge lies. Because the board meets on the 27th, we have, and this would be assuming that the next day that notice went out, we would have 30 days from January 28th where the plan is, well, no, when the paper publishes it, I should say, you have 30 days that's been published. Then the hearing can take place at the next board meeting following that. Now, based on the calendar, that puts us into March. So we would be looking at March 31st as the public hearing date that was scheduled on January 28th, because there's not enough time with that 30-day window to do it in February. So that would have to put us out to March. Presumably, the hearing would take place at the board meeting unless they decided to kick it back to this committee and have the committee hold the hearing. Either way, we would hope that hearing gets done on or as close to as March 31st as possible.
It would be March 24th.
Thanks, Dan. That was a guess on
It's
my
the fourth
part.
Thursday of the month.
Fourth Thursday. Thank you.
So then as soon as that hearing is held and the board adopts the plan, we can go ahead and submit everything to DATCAP. And then we would be awaiting their final approval. So that's our timeline, given the board meetings that we have to work with and the process that we have to work with. It's as expedited as we can possibly make it. Any questions about this timeline or the steps that are necessary? And this also means we would have the hearing notice language ready in advance, and we can provide you with that if you desire, so that it's ready to go immediately into the official publication of the county, which I assume is the Daily Press. And that hearing process itself is, basically whatever the board uses as standard procedures for conducting hearing, opening it up, keeping it open for a certain period of time to accept comments or feedback on the plan, closing the hearing if there's nobody there to provide comments, or listening to those comments with allocated time frames for people to speak. And if people do speak and they say, we don't like the content, it's the prerogative of the board then to kick this back to the Farmland Preservation Committee for further edits. And then that triggers the whole cycle all over again. So we hope that does not happen. I think it's pretty unlikely that that would happen, but it's not impossible.
Do you
Okay.
get-
Yeah, works for us.
Okay. All right. Can you go back to the agenda, Autumn? I think before we go on to public comment, we would be looking for some official action from this committee then to recommend approval by the board.
I'll make a motion to forward this plan for approval by the full county board. Can I get a second?
Charlie, before you do that, do
Yep.
you want to add the caveat about having the executive summary in there before it goes to the board?
Do you need that?
It's up to you. It's your call. If it's not necessary to do that, I mean, you can recommend this subject to.
I assumed the caveat would be in there when it went to the board.
Okay. Okay.
Is that a possibility that it won't be?
The problem we're running up into there is where we're at this time of year. And the fact that I'm only in the office for 2 more days in 2025.
Okay, well, it doesn't have, it
But-
can go in anytime, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can.
So with the assumption that you'll get it in there if you can, and if you can't, we'll put it in some other time.
Okay. Fair enough.
Is that adequate for the group? Okay, it's,
Charlie, the county board can also add it as an amendment.
okay, the county board could add it as an amendment later.
Yep.
Which, okay. All right, so there's a motion on the floor to forward this to the full county board. No caveat. Does the board want a caveat on the executive summary? No. Okay, so the feeling is this is fine so far. There's a motion on the floor to forward this to the full county board. Do we have a second? Did someone second?
Jim will second.
Jim will second. There's a motion and a second on the floor to forward the Ashland County Farmland Preservation Plan to the full county board. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Floor is yours again, Jason.
We have a public comment on the agenda, and I guess as chair, Charlie, I would defer to you on how you want to handle public comment and the adjournment, I guess. As far as the planning.
I'll need is there anyone here that would like to publicly comment? Is there anyone online that would like to publicly comment? Seeing as there's no one who wants to publicly comment, we will not open the floor for public comments. The records will show that we tried. With that, we will move past public comment and back to Jason.
All right. I guess in closing, I want to thank everyone for your work and dedication on this project. And I think you get a good product in the end. And hopefully you gain some benefit of going through the process of having the discussion. And you can take that knowledge and take what we've talked about here and help advance that through the comprehensive planning process going forward and keep it alive. So I just want to say thank you.
Jason, we're grateful for everything you did, and for Autumn, you did a wonderful job. And I would like this group to give them a round of applause, please. Thank you very much. And unless anyone has anything further, we should adjourn. Jason,
Sounds good.
All right.
Yes.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Jim, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second. Josh
There's a
Pearson.
motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.